Kid fired me to save his daddy $100,000, handed me $60 million worth of encryption technology instead. That's not a figure of speech. That's not exaggeration. That is the precise, documented, SEC-filed outcome of what happened when a 27-year-old with a Columbia MBA and his father's last name decided I was dead weight. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Mitchell Caldwell. I'm 53 years old. I've spent 18 years as Chief Encryption Architect at Greystone Defense Systems in Arlington, Virginia. Before that, I spent 24 years in the United States Navy, 10 active, 14 reserve, Lieutenant Commander, Signals Intelligence, Submarine Operations in the Western Pacific, Cryptographic Warfare out of Norfolk, Counterintelligence work. I still can't talk about at dinner parties. Not that I go to dinner parties. I drive a 12-year-old Ford Explorer with a faded Navy Intelligence Specialist Warfare pin decal on the back glass. The AC works about 60% of the time. The leather smells like old coffee and dog hair. I've been offered company cars 3 times, declined every one. That should tell you something about me. Let me tell you how we got here. I joined Greystone in 2006. I was 35. I'd just come off 4 years of private contracting work after my active duty ended. The kind of work where you sit in windowless rooms writing code for systems that don't officially exist. I was good at it. I was good at it the way a watchmaker is good at gears. Quiet hands. Patient mind. No wasted motion. Harold Vance recruited me personally. Captain Harold Vance, retired. Navy lifer. Built Greystone from a 3-man consulting shop in a rented office above a dry cleaner in Crystal City into a $200 million defense contractor. The man had hands like catcher's mitts and a voice like gravel rolling downhill, and when he shook your hand, he looked you in the eye the entire time. Not performing it, doing it. Vance saw something in me. Or maybe he just recognized it. That thing in people who've spent years underwater, in sealed steel tubes, where the only thing standing between you and the crushing weight of the Pacific is the precision of the work. You either develop an obsession with getting it right, or you don't come home. I developed the obsession. By my 8th year, 2014, I'd built Greystone's entire AES 256 encryption suite from the ground up. Every line, every protocol, every handshake sequence. I'm talking about the architecture the Pentagon ran for drone communications, naval fleet coordination across 3 oceans, classified submarine operations. The silent service doesn't stay silent by accident. It stays silent because someone writes code that makes silence possible. I was that someone. The suite lived on a private air-gapped server. No cloud backup. No redundant copy on a corporate network somewhere. Air-gapped means physically disconnected from every other system on Earth. You want to access it, you walk into a room, you sit down at that terminal, and you type. That was by design, my design. Now, here's what matters. Here's the part that Kyle Ashford, in all his agile restructuring wisdom, never bothered to read. In 2014, Harold Vance and I sat down at a steakhouse in Arlington. McCormick and Schmick's on Wilson Boulevard. Corner booth. 2 porterhouses, a bottle of Blanton's, and a manila folder. Vance had been thinking about retirement. He was 68 then, starting to feel it. He'd already begun transitioning ownership to Charles Ashford, a money man who'd married into influence and bought a controlling stake. Vance didn't love the arrangement, but the board wanted liquidity, and Charles had deep pockets. What Vance did love was loyalty, and he loved it the way old Navy men love it, not as a word, as a covenant. He slid the folder across the table. Inside was an addendum to my employment agreement. Section 11, subsection 3. I read it twice. Then I read it a 3rd time. The language was precise. In the event that the annual performance bonus designated under Schedule C was dispersed, while Mitchell Caldwell remained an active employee of Greystone Defense Systems, all intellectual property rights for the core encryption suite and associated technologies would transfer automatically to Caldwell as individual proprietor. The license would revert to Greystone only for the duration of his continued employment. If at any point Caldwell was no longer an employee at the time of bonus disbursement, the IP transferred fully and permanently. No reversion, no grace period, no clawback. I looked up at him. He was pouring his second bourbon. "Harold, this gives me ownership of the entire suite." He didn't blink. "You built it. Every line. On your own time. Your own methodology. Your own architecture. I'm not going to pretend the company created that. You did. I just want to make sure that if something happens after I'm gone, you're protected." He signed it right there. Notarized copy filed within the week. I had my attorney, Robert Evans, former Navy JAG, file a provisional backup with the USPTO. Belt and suspenders. Evans told me the same thing he always told me. File it under your name. You can always assign it later. I never did. That document sat in a fireproof safe in my home office for 10 years. I never mentioned it in a meeting, never referenced it in an email, never waved it around during salary negotiations. It just existed, quiet, patient, like me. Now let me tell you about my wife, Sarah. She died 4 years ago. Breast cancer. Diagnosed in March, gone by November. 7 months. That's not enough time to do anything except hold on and watch. I was at the Pentagon the night she had her worst episode. Emergency patch on a submarine communications breach. 3 nuclear submarines in the Western Pacific running my encryption suite, and a handshake failure had knocked 2 of them off the classified network. The Navy didn't call Greystone. They called me, by name, personally. I spent 11 hours in a SCIF while my wife was in the oncology ward at Virginia Hospital Center. Emily, my daughter, she was 17 then. She sat with her mother alone until 2 in the morning. When I finally got to the hospital, Sarah was asleep. Emily was in the chair next to the bed, still in her school clothes, her calculus textbook open on her lap. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. I fixed the breach. I always fix the breach. That was the job. That was always the job. And the job ate everything. It ate my evenings. It ate my weekends. It ate the last months I had with the woman I loved. Sarah never complained. Not once. She understood the work the way only a Navy wife can. She'd say, "Go fix it, Mitch. We'll be here when you get back." Except one time she wasn't. Emily's 21 now, 3rd year at Georgetown Law. Sharp as a scalpel and twice as precise. She got that from her mother. She got the stubbornness from me. Her tuition is $67,000 a year. I pay every cent. So when Kyle Ashford walked into my life 6 months ago, I had exactly 2 things I cared about: my daughter's future and the work. He threatened both inside a week. Charles Ashford appointed his son Vice President of Strategic Operations on a Monday in July. No interview process. No board review. No operational experience of any kind. Kyle Ashford's entire professional history consisted of 2 years at a consulting firm where his father was a client, and an MBA from Columbia, where I'm told he graduated in the middle of his class. He showed up his first day in a slim-cut Navy suit that cost more than my mortgage payment. Perfect teeth. Hair like he'd been styled by a magazine. Carried a MacBook Pro under one arm, like a fashion accessory. First meeting, he used the word optimization 4 times and agile 3. He told a room full of engineers with a combined 90 years of defense experience that Greystone needed to pivot away from legacy infrastructure and embrace scalable synergy. I watched 6 people in that room stop blinking at the same time. I didn't say anything. I never do. I watched. I listened. I noted. 5 days into his tenure, Kyle walked into a classified briefing, not a regular meeting. a classified briefing with a DARPA program manager and 2 naval intelligence commanders. We were presenting the encryption architecture for a $400 million defense contract. Submarine communications. My specialty. My code. The biggest deal Greystone had pursued in 3 years. Kyle walked in without knocking. Didn't have the clearance. Didn't have the read-in authorization. Just walked in because the door was open and the conference room had his family name on the building. He looked at the 2 Navy commanders, then at me, then at his watch. We need to wrap this up. I've got real business to discuss with the engineering leads at 3. Commander Whitfield, the senior intelligence officer at the table, looked at me. I looked at Kyle. The DARPA program manager closed her folder. That meeting ended 11 minutes early. We lost momentum on the presentation. Commander Whitfield never rescheduled. $400 million. Gone. Because Kyle Ashford had real business. But that wasn't the day he fired me. That came later. That came on a Tuesday at 2:15 p.m. in the same conference room. I was mid-brief. Different meeting. Same stakes. Systems integration review for the Hartwell Defense merger. A $320 million deal that hinged entirely on the value of our encryption portfolio. My encryption portfolio. 3 Hartwell engineers on a secure video feed. My team of 6 in the room. 2 days before my annual performance bonus was contractually due. $105,000, not $100,000. $105,000 per Schedule C of my employment agreement. Payable January 15th. Kyle walked in. Same suit. Same teeth. Same MacBook he never opened. He waited until I paused between slides. Then he said it, clear and loud enough for every person in the room. Mitchell, we need to talk. We're optimizing the payroll. Your legacy methods are dead weight, and frankly, you're not agile enough for the new Greystone. 12 people in that room. 6 of them mine. 3 on a video feed who went dead silent. We're terminating your position effective immediately. HR has your paperwork. Security will escort you to your desk. You have until 4 o'clock. The Hartwell engineers on the video feed disconnected without a word. I looked at him for a long time. 4 seconds. Maybe 5. I could hear the HVAC humming above us. Someone's pen had fallen on the table. Nobody picked it up. I understand perfectly, I said. I'll have my desk cleared by 4. Kyle smiled. The kind of smile you see on people who've never been hit and assume they never will be. Great. HR's got your severance package. Standard stuff. We'll need your badge and building credentials before you leave. I stood up, closed my laptop, unplugged the HDMI cable from the projector, wound it once around my hand, and set it on the table. I picked up my coffee mug, Navy anchor on the side. Sarah gave it to me my first year at Greystone. On the way out, I passed Kyle's office. The door was cracked. Hallway carried sound better than people realized. I know this because I'd walked that hallway 4,000 times in 18 years, and I knew exactly which tiles creaked and which corners amplified voices by 30%. Kyle was on the phone with his father. It's done. Caldwell's out. Clean. No scene. No drama. I told you he'd fall in line. He's got a kid at Georgetown and a mortgage. He needs the severance. He's not executive material, Dad. Never was. Just a coder who got comfortable. I stood in that hallway for 6 seconds, listening to a 27-year-old explain my life to his father. Then I walked to my desk, packed 1 box, badge on the counter, building pass in the tray. The security guard who walked me out was named Davis. I'd known him 9 years. He didn't make eye contact until we reached the parking garage. Then he said, "Quiet. This is wrong, Mr. Caldwell." "I know," I said. I put the box in the back of my Ford Explorer, sat behind the wheel, looked at the faded Navy pin on the back glass through the rearview mirror. Then I drove home. If you've ever had a boss or been in a situation like this, hit that like button and subscribe. The drive home took 22 minutes. I know because I watched every one of them tick by on the dashboard clock. 2:41 p.m. to 3:03 p.m. The Explorer's AC was running at about 40% that day. January in Arlington. Cold enough that the windshield kept fogging at the edges. Not cold enough for ice. The kind of weather that just sits on you. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't call anyone. I drove the speed limit on Washington Boulevard, made the left on Pershing, pulled into my driveway, and sat there for another minute with the engine running. The house was quiet. It's always quiet now. 4 years of quiet. Sarah's garden out front had gone to mulch and bare stalks 2 winters ago. I kept meaning to do something about it. I never did. I went inside, hung my jacket on the hook by the door, the same hook where Sarah's coat used to hang. I left that side empty. Habit. I walked past the kitchen, past the photos on the hallway wall. Emily at 8, missing her front teeth. Sarah and me at the Navy Ball in Norfolk, 2003. Emily's Georgetown acceptance letter, framed. The hallway of a life that kept going even when parts of it stopped. I went to my home office, opened the fireproof safe, bottom shelf, behind the tax folders and the life insurance documents. Manila envelope, yellowed slightly at the edges. 10 years in a safe will do that. I pulled it out, set it on the desk, didn't open it. Not yet. Then I went to the kitchen, took down the bottle of Blanton's from the top shelf. Not the daily drinker. The good stuff. Same distillery, same bottle shape as the one Vance and I split at McCormick and Schmick's in 2014. I poured 3 fingers into a rocks glass, no ice, and sat down at the kitchen table. I called Robert Evans at 3:47 p.m. Evans picked up on the second ring. He always does. Navy JAG officers don't let phones ring 3 times. It's a reflex. Mitch. Robert. I got terminated today. Effective immediately. Involuntary. No cause cited. Silence. 3 seconds. I could hear him set something down. A coffee mug, maybe. The scrape of ceramic on wood. When's your bonus due? January 15th. Thursday. 9 a.m. per Schedule C. And they terminated you today. Tuesday. Tuesday at 2:15 p.m. Mitch. His voice was careful now. The voice he uses when he already knows the answer, but wants to hear you say it. Will you be an employee of Greystone Defense Systems at 9 a.m. on January 15th? No, Robert, I will not. Another pause. Longer this time. I heard him exhale through his nose. Then, Section 11, Subsection 3, is now in effect. The performance bonus disbursement is contractually tied to active employment status. If you are not an active employee at the time of scheduled disbursement, the exclusive license terminates, and full IP ownership of the core encryption suite reverts to you as individual proprietor. Automatically. No filing required. No grace period. That's my reading. It's not just your reading. It's the law. The addendum was notarized, countersigned by Vance as CEO, and I filed the provisional backup with the USPTO myself in 2014. Patent reference number 9,847,213. Mitch, they don't own the code. They won't own the code. As of 9:01 a.m. Thursday, the entire AES 256 encryption suite, every protocol, every handshake sequence, every line belongs to you. I took a sip of bourbon, held it for a second, let it burn. What do I need to do? Nothing. That's the beauty of it. The reversion is automatic upon the condition being met. You don't file anything. You don't notify anyone. The contract does the work. The only thing you need to do is not be on their payroll Thursday morning. And Kyle Ashford just made sure of that. What about the air-gapped server? The physical hardware. The hardware belongs to Greystone. The code on it belongs to you. They can keep the box. They can't run what's inside it. Not legally, not without a license from the IP owner, which, as of Thursday, is you. I finished the bourbon, set the glass down. Robert, I want to do this right. Then do nothing. Go to bed. Wake up Wednesday. Go to bed again. Wake up Thursday. At 9:01 a.m., you will be the sole legal owner of encryption technology valued at approximately $60 million. The technology that runs 3 Pentagon programs, 2 NATO communication protocols, and the entire Hartwell Defense merger. Say nothing. Call no one. Let the clock do what clocks do. I sat at that kitchen table for another hour after I hung up. The house was quiet. The bourbon was gone. Outside, it had started to rain. I could hear it hitting the gutters Sarah always asked me to clean. I went to bed at 9:30. Earliest I'd gone to bed on a weekday in 18 years. Wednesday was nothing. That's the only word for it. Nothing. I woke up at 6:15 a.m., made black coffee in the same machine I'd used since 2019, drank it at the kitchen table, read the Washington Post online, did the crossword. 14 across was cryptographer. I almost laughed. Almost. Emily called at noon. She'd heard. Someone at Greystone had texted someone who knew someone at Georgetown. The defense contracting world in Arlington is 3 degrees of separation on a good day. Dad, what happened? I was let go. Let go? You built their entire encryption division. I know. Are you okay? I'm fine, Em. You don't sound fine. You sound like you sound when you're thinking 7 moves ahead and not telling anyone. Smart kid. Gets it from her mother. I'm fine. Focus on your contract's final. We'll talk this weekend. Dad, I love you. Go study. She paused. The same pause Sarah used to give me when she knew I wasn't telling her everything, but also knew pushing wouldn't work. I love you too. Call me if you need anything. Click. Wednesday afternoon, I walked the dog. Rex, a yellow lab. Sarah picked him out from a shelter in Falls Church when he was a puppy. He's 9 now. Gray around the muzzle. Knows when something has shifted. He kept looking up at me on the walk. That long Labrador stare, head slightly tilted. I scratched behind his ears. 41 hours, I said to him. He didn't ask what I meant. Dogs are good that way. Wednesday night, I sat on the back deck. Rain had stopped. Overcast. The kind of sky that looks like concrete. I could see the lights of Rosslyn across the tree line. My phone sat on the railing. No calls, no texts, no emails from Greystone. No one checking in. They thought it was over. Thursday, January 15th, I woke up at 5:48 a.m., 12 minutes before my alarm. I made coffee, fed Rex, sat at the kitchen table. At 8:55 a.m., I opened my laptop, pulled up the Greystone employee portal, bookmarks still saved. I typed my credentials. Access denied. Employee ID number 4471. Status terminated. I looked at the clock in the corner of the screen. 8:57 a.m., 8:58, 8:59, 9 a.m. Schedule C, Section 4.2. Annual performance bonus disbursement shall occur automatically at 9 a.m. Eastern on January 15th for all active employees meeting performance thresholds. I was not an active employee. 9:01 a.m. I closed the laptop, poured a second cup of coffee, sat back down. Done. No alarm went off. No email pinged. No sirens. Nothing happened at 9:01 a.m. on January 15th that anyone at Greystone Defense Systems noticed. The bonus disbursement system processed payments for 412 active employees. It did not process a payment for employee ID number 4471 because employee ID number 4471 no longer existed in the system. And because it didn't, Section 11, Subsection 3 of the 2014 Employment Agreement Addendum executed automatically. Like a line of code, like a handshake protocol on a submarine 300 feet below the Pacific. Silent, precise, irreversible. The encryption suite was mine. Every line, every protocol, every key. I didn't celebrate. I didn't call Evans. I didn't do anything. I drank my coffee and watched the rain start up again through the kitchen window. At Greystone, no one knew yet. Kyle Ashford was in his corner office, probably on his MacBook, probably composing a LinkedIn post about tough leadership decisions. The Hartwell merger team was preparing final documentation for a $320 million deal built entirely on the value of technology that, as of 12 minutes ago, Greystone no longer owned. The fuse was lit. They just couldn't smell the smoke yet. Friday morning it started. I know the sequence because I heard it later, piece by piece, from people who were in the building. From Davis, the security guard. From Janet Whitmore, my former lead engineer. From Thomas Miller himself, weeks afterward, sitting across from me in a conference room looking like he'd aged 10 years. At 10 a.m. Friday, the Pentagon's automated security handshake failed. This is not a small thing. The AES 256 encryption suite runs a rotating authentication protocol. Every 6 hours, the system regenerates its handshake keys. The Pentagon's systems ping the encryption host. The host responds with updated credentials. And if the credentials match the registered IP owner's licensing authorization, the handshake completes and the encrypted channels remain active. If they don't match, the system quarantines itself. Automatically. The channels don't go down, they lock. At 10 a.m. on Friday, January 16th, the handshake pinged Greystone's server. The server responded. The Pentagon's verification system checked the licensing authorization against the USPTO registry. The registry showed the IP owner as Mitchell Caldwell, individual proprietor, not Greystone Defense Systems, authorization mismatch, quarantine, 3 submarine communication channels, 2 drone coordination networks, 1 NATO integrated fleet relay, all locked, not crashed, not deleted, locked. Sitting behind a wall that only the registered IP owner could open. Me. At 10:04 a.m., a Pentagon systems analyst named Lieutenant Patterson sent an urgent flag to NAVINFO. At 10:11 a.m., NavInfo contacted Greystone's secure operations line. At 10:14 a.m., the call reached Kyle Ashford's office because the chief encryption architect was no longer employed there, and no one had been designated as a replacement. Kyle didn't answer. He was in a meeting about office furniture for the new executive suite. At 10:23 a.m., the call reached Thomas Miller, general counsel. Miller, to his credit, answered on the first ring. He listened for 90 seconds. Then he put the phone down and pulled up the employee database. Mitchell Caldwell. Status: terminated. Date: January 13th. Bonus disbursement: not processed. No active employee at time of scheduled payment. Miller sat very still for what he later described as the longest 10 seconds of his career. Then he opened the legal archives. Section 11. Subsection 3. He read it once, then again, then a third time. Oh no. He said it out loud, in his office, alone, then again, quieter. Oh no. He picked up the phone and called Charles Ashford directly. Charles, I need you at headquarters immediately. Your son signed a termination order that triggered an IP reversion clause in Caldwell's employment agreement. The encryption suite is no longer ours. The Pentagon just called. Their systems are locked. We need Caldwell. At 10:47 a.m., my phone rang. The caller ID said, Greystone Defense, Maine. I was on my back deck. Rex was lying at my feet. The rain was hitting the railing in that uneven rhythm that sounds almost like someone tapping their fingers. I had a cup of black coffee going cold in my hand. I looked at the phone, watched it vibrate against the wood, counted the rings. 1, 2, 3, 4. I picked it up, looked at the screen for 2 more seconds. Then I set it back down. It rang again at 10:52, and at 11:03, and at 11:15. Kyle's personal cell at 11:31. Charles Ashford's private line at 11:48. Thomas Miller at 12:02 p.m., 12:14 p.m., and 12:27 p.m. By 3 p.m. Friday, I had 47 missed calls. 47. I didn't answer a single one. At 4:15 p.m., my phone buzzed one final time. A text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. It was from Davis, the security guard. "Mr. Caldwell, it's Davis. I don't know what you did, but Kyle's office looks like a bomb went off. Papers everywhere. He's screaming at the lawyers. His father just arrived, and he looks like he's going to be sick. The Pentagon sent 2 people in uniform, and nobody's smiling. I just wanted you to know." I read it twice, set the phone down, picked up my coffee. Rex lifted his head, looked at me, tail thumped once against the deck. "Good boy," I said. The rain kept falling. The phone kept buzzing. I didn't touch it again. 47 calls. 47 chances to hear a 27-year-old Columbia MBA explain that this was all a misunderstanding, that we could work something out, that surely there was a way to be agile about this. 47 times I let it ring. Click. The call I did answer came Saturday morning at 8:15 a.m. Not from Greystone, from Doug Hartwell. I'd never spoken to Hartwell directly, knew him by reputation. 60 years old. Started Hartwell Defense in a garage in McLean in 1994, built it into a $280 million company doing naval systems integration and logistics. No MBA, no family money. Former enlisted, machinist's mate on a destroyer, before he figured out he was smarter than most of the officers giving him orders. The kind of man who reads contracts before he signs them. He'd heard. The defense contracting world in Arlington doesn't keep secrets for more than 12 hours. By Friday evening, the merger uncertainty had hit the wire. Greystone's stock dropped 18% before close of trading. $320 million deal, frozen. Every defense publication inside the Beltway was running some version of the same headline. Key IP ownership in question. Pentagon systems compromised. Merger in jeopardy. Hartwell called me at 8:15 a.m. on a Saturday. I was feeding Rex. "Mitchell Caldwell?" "Speaking." "Doug Hartwell. I'll skip the pleasantries. I've spent 30 years building my company the right way, and I'm not going to watch a $320 million merger collapse because some kid couldn't be bothered to read a contract. I want to talk to you. Not your lawyers. You. Today." "Where?" "My office. McLean. Whenever you can get here." "Give me an hour." I showered. Put on a clean shirt. Nothing fancy. Drove the Explorer to McLean. Hartwell's office was in a 3-story building off Chainbridge Road. No glass walls. No mahogany lobby. A reception desk, an American flag, and a framed photo of a destroyer on the wall. Hartwell met me in the hallway. Big hands. Firm grip. Looked me in the eye the entire time. I'd seen that before. Vance had the same quality. You can't teach it. You either respect people or you perform respecting people. And the difference is obvious to anyone who served. We sat in his office. He poured coffee from a drip machine on his credenza. Black. No cream, no sugar, the good kind of bad coffee. "I'm going to be direct," he said. "The merger with Greystone was built on your encryption suite. Without that IP, the deal is worth 40 cents on the dollar. I'm not interested in 40 cents on the dollar." "I understand. I'm also not interested in acquiring broken companies run by people who fire their best asset to save a bonus payment. I've read your file. I've read your service record. I've talked to 3 people at the Pentagon who say you're the only person in the private sector they trust with submarine communications architecture." I didn't say anything. I drank my coffee. "Here's what I want, Mitchell. Exclusive licensing agreement. Your encryption suite, your terms. I'll build the entire combined entity's defense portfolio around it. 5-year guaranteed contract. $85 million. He said the number, the way a man says a number, when he's already done the math and knows it's fair. Equity participation, he continued. Full creative control over the encryption division. And a hiring pipeline. You bring your team. Every engineer you want. I'll match salaries and add 15%. I set my coffee down. I have conditions. Name them. 2. First, Kyle Ashford is permanently barred from any role, any title, any consulting arrangement, any advisory position in the combined entity or any subsidiary. Not a demotion, not a reassignment. Gone. Completely. His name doesn't appear on an org chart, a letterhead, or a parking space. Hartwell didn't blink. Done. What's the second? Charles Ashford reads a public statement, on camera, at a press conference, acknowledging that his son's actions caused the collapse of the merger and the compromise of Pentagon systems. Not a PR draft written by a communications team. A statement that says what happened. Specifically. Hartwell leaned back, studied me. 5 seconds. 10. That's a hard ask. Charles won't want to do it. Charles doesn't have a choice. Without my licensing agreement, the merger is dead. Without the merger, Greystone's patent portfolio gets sold to creditors, and Charles Ashford's company is worth the furniture in the lobby. He can read a statement, or he can read a bankruptcy filing. Those are his options. Hartwell almost smiled. Almost. I'll make the call. He made the call. I drove home, fed Rex, sat on the back deck, watched the sun go down behind the tree line toward Rosslyn. The rain had finally stopped. First clear sky in 3 days. Evans called at 7 p.m. He'd already been in contact with Hartwell's legal team. They're drawing up the licensing agreement tonight. $85 million over 5 years. Equity participation. Everything you asked for. Mitch, this is ironclad. And the conditions? Hartwell personally delivered both to Charles Ashford at 4 this afternoon. Charles tried to negotiate. Hartwell told him the terms were non-negotiable and that the Pentagon had already contacted Hartwell directly about a fast-tracked submarine communications contract. Charles agreed to both conditions at 5:22 p.m. His attorney confirmed in writing by 6. I closed my eyes, held the phone against my ear, listened to the quiet. Robert. Yeah. Thank you for the clause, for filing it, for 10 years of keeping it safe. You kept it safe, Mitch. I just helped you build the lock. The board meeting was the following Wednesday. Day 10. Greystone's conference room. The same room where Kyle fired me. Polished mahogany table, 20 feet long. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Arlington. 7 board members seated. Thomas Miller at the far end with a stack of documents and the face of a man who hadn't slept since Friday. Charles Ashford sat at the head of the table. He looked like he'd lost 10 pounds in a week. Gray in places I didn't remember being gray. Kyle sat 2 seats to his right. Still wearing the slim-cut suit. Still had the perfect teeth. But something was different. The posture. The jaw. The way his eyes moved. He looked like a man who'd just learned that gravity applied to him. I walked in at 9:58 a.m., 2 minutes early. I didn't sit. I stood at the end of the table opposite Charles. Set a single manila folder on the surface. Didn't open it. 7 board members looked at me. Miller looked at the folder. Kyle looked at his father. Mr. Caldwell, Miller began. He cleared his throat. Thank you for coming. I'm not here for pleasantries, Thomas. I'm here because the board requested this meeting, and I agreed to attend. Let's be specific about why. Miller opened his own folder. His hands were steady, but just barely. On January 13th, Kyle Ashford, acting as Vice President of Strategic Operations, terminated Mitchell Caldwell's employment effective immediately. This termination occurred 48 hours before the scheduled disbursement of Mr. Caldwell's annual performance bonus of $105,000 under Schedule C. Because Mr. Caldwell was not an active employee at the time of disbursement, Section 11, Subsection 3 of the 2014 Employment Agreement Addendum executed automatically. He paused, looked at the board, then at Kyle. The Core AES 256 encryption suite, all associated protocols, handshake sequences, and subsidiary technologies are now the sole intellectual property of Mitchell Caldwell as individual proprietor. Greystone Defense Systems has no license, no ownership claim, and no legal right to operate, modify, or distribute the technology. The Pentagon has confirmed that all encrypted channels dependent on the suite are currently in quarantine status pending resolution. The Hartwell merger, valued at $320 million, cannot proceed without a valid IP license. He set the document down. Charles, the code isn't ours. It hasn't been since 9:01 a.m. Thursday. Mitchell owns the keys to the entire Pentagon suite. The room was silent, the kind of silence that has weight. I could hear the HVAC. I could hear someone's watch ticking. Kyle spoke first. Of course he did. This is a clerical technicality. Our legal team can challenge this in court. The IP was developed using company resources, on company time. There's no way this holds up. I looked at him. First time I'd made direct eye contact with Kyle Ashford since he fired me. The addendum was drafted by Harold Vance, founder and then CEO of this company. Notarized, countersigned, filed with the USPTO under patent reference number 9,847,213. It has survived 10 years of annual legal audits because no one at this table, including you, ever bothered to read it. I opened my folder, slid the notarized copy to the center of the table. Vance's signature at the bottom. Bold, unmistakable. The suite was built on a private, air-gapped server using my own methodology, my own architecture, and my own cryptographic framework developed during 24 years of Navy signals intelligence work. It was not developed using company resources. It was developed using me, and the man who built this company understood the difference. Kyle turned to Miller. Thomas, tell them this is challengeable. Miller didn't look at Kyle. He looked at the table. It's not challengeable. I've had 3 outside firms review it since Friday. The clause is valid. The reversion is complete. Mr. Caldwell is the legal owner. Kyle's face went white. Not red. White. The blood just left. I watched it happen, the way you watch a tide go out. Slow, then all at once. Charles Ashford spoke for the first time. Mitchell, what do you want? I've already signed an exclusive licensing agreement with Hartwell Defense. $85 million guaranteed over 5 years. Full creative control. 16 of my former engineers have accepted offers to follow me. The Pentagon has fast-tracked a submarine communications contract with Hartwell worth $500 million over 5 years. That process is already underway. I paused. Let the numbers settle. My conditions for allowing Greystone to participate in the merger on revised terms are twofold. 1. Kyle Ashford is permanently barred from any role in the combined entity, effective today. 2. You, Charles, will read a public statement at a press conference acknowledging that your son's actions directly caused the compromise of Pentagon Defense Systems and the near collapse of this merger. You can't be serious, Kyle said. His voice cracked on the second word. I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on Charles. The board will vote. Miller called the vote. 7 members. I stood and watched each one. All in favor of accepting Mr. Caldwell's terms as stated. 7 hands. 7-0. Unanimous. Kyle stood up. His chair scraped against the floor. He looked at his father. Charles wouldn't meet his eyes. Dad. Nothing. Dad, say something. Charles Ashford looked at his son the way a man looks at a bill he can't pay. Kyle, sit down. I'm not going to... Sit down. Kyle sat. I picked up my folder, closed it, tucked it under my arm. It wasn't personal, Charles, I said. It was just arithmetic. I turned and walked out. Davis was standing by the elevator. Same security guard. Same uniform. He looked at me. I looked at him. Mr. Caldwell. He nodded. Davis. He pressed the elevator button for me. The doors opened. I stepped in. Behind me, I heard a voice. Miller's. Clear and steady. Kyle, I'll need your badge and building credentials. Security will escort you to your desk. You have until noon. The elevator doors closed. Charles Ashford read the statement that afternoon. I didn't watch it live. Evans sent me the clip later. Charles stood behind a podium in Greystone's lobby. 3 cameras. 24 reporters. He read from a single sheet of paper, and his hands shook the entire time. He looked like a man at his own funeral. He read every word. The unauthorized termination, the missed bonus, the IP reversion, the Pentagon compromise, his son's name, all of it. Kyle was escorted out of the building at 11:47 a.m. that same morning by Davis. Company cards canceled. Access revoked. He carried 1 box to a BMW in the reserved parking spot. The same walk. The same garage. The same security guard. Arithmetic. Greystone filed for bankruptcy 3 months later. Patent portfolio sold to creditors for pennies. The building on Wilson Boulevard went dark. I run the encryption division at Hartwell Defense now. Corner office overlooking Arlington. Not because I asked for it, because Hartwell insisted. 16 of my former engineers sit on the floor below me. The Pentagon fast-tracked the submarine communications contract. $500 million over 5 years. My code, my architecture, my team. Emily graduated Georgetown Law last spring. Top 10%. She starts at a firm in D.C. in September. Her tuition was paid. Every cent. She came to the office on her first visit and looked at the view for a long time. Then she looked at me. You seem different, Dad. Less stressed. Like you're actually here when you're here. I am. She noticed the frame on my wall. Kyle Ashford's termination letter, signed and dated January 13th. Mounted behind glass. Why do you keep that? I looked at it. Looked at Sarah's photo next to it. The one from the Navy ball. Her laughing at something I'd said. I can't remember what. Reminder, I said, that the math always adds up. She smiled. Same smile as her mother. Rex is lying under my desk right now. Gray muzzle on my shoe. Tail thump when I reach down. The Explorer is in the parking garage. Same faded Navy pin. Same 60% AC. Davis texts me once a month, just checking in. Vance called last week from his place in Annapolis. Said he'd heard. Said he was proud. I could hear him pouring something on the other end. Bourbon. The good stuff. Kyle's last known venture is a cryptocurrency startup in San Diego. Hasn't shipped a product. I don't think about him much. Because when you've spent 18 years building something, you don't just let it go. You make sure the math always adds up. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and let me know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe and ring that notification bell to get alerts about new stories like this one. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.